Perfect. Perfect. Yes. So yes, I myself came from a non-religious or non-spiritual background. My professional background has been in what I call change making, which is a very broad term. People talk about human rights, they talk about development, they talk about politics, and I kind of did a little bit of everything. I was always, since from a very young age, interested in making change in the world. It's really what drove me. At the age of, I think it was 11, I drafted a petition and got over 100 signatures for the removal of the principal to support the removal. So I was really interested in creating change. So I feel like within me, there's a part of me that's really an activist. At the same time, I have really grown the most through my spiritual journey. And that has really affected my activism and how it comes forth. So Spolosophy is spiritual political philosophy. And the idea of Spolosophy is how to be in this world but not of it. This is the Christian principle, right? So we have to live in this world, but how can we not be worldly ourselves? We're going to explore this concept in classes as we move ahead. And the way I want to explain what I mean when I talk about political, because it's a loaded word. So from the year 2000 to about 2004, I worked in international mediation between Sudan and South Sudan, between the two governments. And during that time, because I had never formally studied politics, so I had I haven't even studied Marxism, or I had no academic background in it. I found myself in that world, and so I learned from the world rather than from theories. And I asked every person that I would have an engagement with what their definition of politics was. And every single person gave me a different definition. So I want to explain what I mean by the word political. And it's not political in the classical sense or in the academic sense. It is about the world. It's about somehow it's got to do it because this is where I feel creating change in the world. Okay, for me, that's really because I think we are political in everything. We're trying to change things, we're trying to influence things, we're trying to create things. And to me, that is the aspect of politics in Spolosophy. So, and then of course, spiritual is of course non-worldly. Right? And spiritual is also an interesting concept that people have very different definitions of. Does anybody want to try to see if they can explain what spiritual is? Okay, Eugene, please remember to unmute yourself.
It's basically your relationship with the divine. Yeah, in simple.
Okay. Yeah. It's your relationship with the divine. So spirituality is a relationship for you?
Yeah, it's it's more of like, let's say I have like a Christian perspective of it, and let me share it more about it. Basically, I believe that we have God's spirit within all of us, and as you overcome pain and challenges, that's the more like you grow, and also like as you meditate, you connect more with it. So like teachings like this and also wisdom are you aligning more to that, more than the flesh, the physical flesh. So yeah, that's my take.
So your take is it's something beyond the physical.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. Anybody else wants to offer their thoughts?
I think for me, spirituality is this deep connection with the divine, with forces, beyond us, that kind of give meaning to our life. So, and then also, I think spirituality is that connection that gives us energy to do things that naturally we may not be able, to do. So I think that's also for me spirituality.
Okay, thank you. So there's also something about a connection or relating, and also something about beyond the physical, right? So if we look at a really easy to understand definition of what is spiritual, spiritual is, as Eugene and Brother Jonas have mentioned, you can call it non-physical. Okay. So we definitely know about the physical world because we have really been, from a very young age, taught to use our senses to experience the world, right? But there's another element of the world which you can say is non-physical, but you could also say is beyond physical and is also within physical. The kingdom of heaven is all around you and within you. The kingdom of heaven is all around you and within you. So it is everywhere and it is inside. That's a Gnostic quote. We're gonna really understand clearly what is this thing and is it there? And you're gonna be able to check for yourself. I don't need to like convince. This is not a class of convincing anybody. This is a class of understanding, of understanding and thinking through and also experiencing. You can experience this, okay? So many people like to think of the spiritual realm, we're going to talk about it as a realm or a dimension, okay? Is different from what we call the 3D realm or the physical realm. In fact, today I was watching a physics documentary about 11D. There are 11 dimensions of reality, and we're only sensing 3 dimensions. The 4th dimension is time. Time is experienced with our mind. 3 dimensions is experienced with our physical senses, right? So length, width, height, 3 dimensions. We experience that with our senses. Time we experience with our mind, okay? And we're going to look at how these two connect. Okay. So the first thing I think to go to is something that if you've taken a class with me before, Marissa, my mom, you may have seen this already, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But it's basically the cosmology of how we came here. We need to start there in order to understand this. So every religious tradition has a cosmology. Basically, how did the cosmos happen? Okay, and how does it work? And I subscribe to the Vedantic cosmology. It makes a lot of sense to me. It's aligned with physics and it's aligned with what other religions say also. So there's no disharmony in Vedantic cosmology between other traditions of spiritual traditions, religious traditions, but also of astrophysics. Okay, so what did they say? So normally we are taught, like at least my generation and above, I don't know what the current young generation are being taught in school, but we've always been taught that all of a sudden there was a big bang and then something happened. That's the science of it, right? The science is there was all of a sudden a big bang. And what was before the big bang, it's not very clear. Well, they say there was nothing. There was nothing before the big bang. Now we know in basic physics that you can't get something from nothing. It's not possible in physics, is it? And the Vedantic thinkers, or also the seers, they were actually seers. They weren't necessarily rationally always working this out. A lot of this was intuited from another system of knowledge, which we'll also explore in this class. They said it doesn't make sense. You cannot get something from nothing. There always was something. So in the Indian tradition, we have this idea of they were called the rishis, they were called seers, okay? And they did take certain drugs, but also got into super conscious states. And they started to understand the cosmos from the knowledge of within. They didn't have a telescope to look at it, and they weren't doing mathematical calculations. They were going into like deep states and downloading information or downloading knowledge. We're going to look at also how you download knowledge and how that works. That's another topic. And they basically understood that there was always something. There was always something. This is something I always draw like this. It's like an eye, right? It was what they call awareness. So I always imagine a cartoon of black, and then all of a sudden 2 eyes are there, and those eyes have always been there to infinity. So you're like, when did the eyes come? Infinitely present. Okay, so one of the things that's really amazing about the spiritual realm is the spiritual realm, it's working in infinity. And infinity is not a concept you can really understand with your mind. I mean, you can understand it intellectually, but you cannot really understand how can something go on and on and on and on and on and on and never end. You can't really understand that because your mind, it operates in time, in the 4th dimension of time, always past and future. So there's always been this awareness. There's a saying, that which has always been and will always be. And this awareness began to have what we could consider a thought. And that thought was like a vibration, like a tiny vibration of energy. And that vibration, as there was more and more focus given to this vibration, the vibration became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the first, I guess it is physical manifestation, this became physical because the vibration became so gross, right? Was actually sound. Okay, that was the first tangible of the vibration of the thought of awareness. And that sound, they say, is the sound of Om. Okay, and this vibe, and it's interesting because in Genesis, I'm always nervous when I'm teaching religious scholars, like Brother Jonas. But anyways, I'll just have to relax. In Genesis, it says, in the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God. It's very interesting. Why? Why the Word? So this is where I find really amazing connections. You'll find when you look at different spiritual traditions and concepts, they're all connected, and they're connected across thousands of years and across huge, vast many thousands of kilometers of land and different complete traditions. But you'll find they start to connect and they make sense. And this vibration, it became more and more powerful, louder and louder and louder and louder and louder, and it split into 2 types of energy. Okay. The first type of energy that is split into, because this is basically just energy. We'll also experience how thought is energy. It's split into gross and subtle energy. Okay. And the subtle energy is what the Indians call prana, or the Taoist, the Chinese tradition, they call it qi. It is the life force. So if we look at what's the difference between a dead body and an alive body, a dead body it's just like the battery switched off, you know what I'm saying? Like something's been taken out of it. It's not working anymore, right? So we say that that's life force. We call it life force. It is the subtle energy. And then we have the gross energy, which is the physical matter, okay? And basically they're just the same energy vibrating at different frequencies. Yeah? So let's look at that idea that everything in the end is vibrating energy of a different frequency. Okay? So we know today, modern physics, that all physical things are basically vibrating atoms. Right? No argument there. You can see them. They're just vibrating. The density and frequency of the vibration. The density of the atoms together and the frequency of the vibration. Okay. So the subtle energy together with the gross energy is what we call light. Right? You need the life force and the physical matter. You get life, right? Anything alive. So a lot of current physics is in alignment with this, as well as a number of different traditions, which also talk about sound as a primary creative force in the creation of the cosmos. Okay, but what we can also see from here is that everything came from the one kind of energy. What people, and some people are uncomfortable with this word, but we're going to put it up there. We're not going to have a problem with this word by the end of the class. You're not going to have a problem with this word. This is just a word. We also need to understand that it's just a word. And the word is going to have very different meanings to all of us. And some of us may not like the meaning, and some of us may love the meaning. Some of us may be like, I hate this word. Some may be like, I love this word. But we have to remember in this class that words are not reality. Words are signposts to something. They're pointing to something. Okay? So for example, Maya. Maya, is it really who you are? Maya, the word Maya? Because there's other Mayas, right? Can I describe you as Maya? No, but it's what I call you. So in the same way, we have to understand that words are just what we call things. They're not actually the things themselves, right? Okay, so what we need to understand from what we can understand from all of this is basically everything in the cosmos is vibrating energy of a different frequency of vibration. And this is where the idea of monism people have interpreted as one God, but I would interpret it as oneness. Okay, philosophy is more metaphysical or symbolic rather than literal. Okay, oneness. So that's why, you have these nice quotes on Instagram and the internet, like, they say, we are stardust. Well, technically we are. There's a physics theory, Stephen Hawking and another guy called something Turok, who's a Russian guy, I think. And that theory basically argues that everything in the cosmos began as the size, all matter in the entire cosmos through all the galaxies began the size of a pea. It was just very, 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 very dense. And what's happened over time is that dense matter has been expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding. That's, one physics theory, right? But, it makes sense to me. But that's why this argument is that we are in every, me, myself, you, yourself, are in every single particle of the universe. It's within you and you are part of it. Because it all came from this one vibration, one thought, what people call the divine, what people call God. This basically, another word to use is awareness. Another word to use is energy, source energy, you can call it even. Whatever word you like, it doesn't matter. And this is a disclaimer here, I'm not a physicist. So you can go and do your own research and then you can come back and correct me. Okay, so one of the interesting things that we know about in physics now is that all we are is a bunch of vibrating atoms, okay? Now, what's really interesting about that is two things. The first thing is that maybe you could just mute.
बोलो
Mute
all right
your mother.
लो चालू થઈ ગયું আমরা ચાલુ થઈ ગયો છે
Can you
webinar
mute
છે
her, Eugene, or you can't mute her
I'm
as a host?
okay
Could you? Yes, maybe she could mute her. You can mute her. Yeah, just mute everybody. That's good. Except me. I think you need to.
sorry
Mom, could you mute yourself, please? I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. That was my grandmother, who has now been, her energy has now come into this class, which is nice. Okay, so where are we? Yeah, so there's two things that are interesting about the fact that everything is just vibrating atoms. The first is that nothing is actually physically touching each other. Like it's really crazy, but the vibration of the atoms means that it's basically the resistance between the two vibrating atoms that are creating a kind of tension and allowing them to be next to each other. But nothing is actually ever touching. That's interesting because how we see things is, oh, my two hands are touching. That's how I feel it. I see it, right? So how we're experiencing reality is not necessarily how reality really is. That's really important to understand. Another thing, for example, we know now that atoms are 99.9999999 to infinity % space. Okay, so basically the electron, the neutron and the proton are basically just very, very tiny particles in all this space, and that's an atom. And we're all just atoms, right? So you are technically 99.9999999 to infinity % space. That means you're not really physical, right? Like 99% of your body is not physical. So again, our senses are telling us, no, I'm dense, I can feel it, I can perceive it, I know it, I can see you, you're dense, I'm touching the, but this is not really, what we're understanding more and more is not really reality. It's how we perceive reality. And how we perceive reality is through the tools that we have. And the tools that we have is our body, our senses, our mind, those three things, right? But these, you have to understand, like, these are just tools. These are just like almost machinery. And these machineries have limits to what they can perceive and what they cannot perceive. They also have limits as to how they can understand something. So for example, if I ask you with your mind intellectually to experience infinity, it's almost impossible to experience it. You can tell me that infinity is a concept that means you go on and on and on and on and on and on forever, but you can't experience what that's like because your mind doesn't allow you to. Your mind only operates in time, past and future. We're going to look at that in another class. If I ask you to experience with your body the entire cosmos, can you? No, because you can only reach this physical space around you, right? So the senses, the body, the mind are limited machinery that work in certain ways. They're also very powerful, also very, very powerful. But so we have actually the energy of the entire universe or cosmos within us. And that's another class also, right? But we have to realize, and this is actually the word, one of the meanings of Maya is illusion, that it's a cosmic illusion, that there's physical dense objects. The physical reality around us is literally a veil behind which, and the veil is what our senses can touch. So the trees, the grass, the plant, everything. But behind that veil is a deeper reality. is a deeper reality that you access in a different way. That's the spiritual realm. So we have the physical realm, and now we have the spiritual realm. And we're going to talk about what is the nature of that realm and how it works and how we can access it and how it affects our physical world. Okay. We also need to realize that the mind is also a filter of reality. So your senses, so I'm sensing through my eyes this image, right, which is on my screen. This image is going to the back of my brain, my eye, my optic nerve, etc., etc. The image is getting processed, and then it's being processed through a whole bunch of beliefs based on my experience. Okay. And then I'm able to understand it in a certain way. Now, my mind is different, your mind is different, everybody's mind is different. So everybody's going to perceive this, even a visual image, differently. We know that, for example, dogs and cats, they have a different way of seeing the world, right? So even their vision is different. So what they're perceiving and how they're experiencing the world is completely different. There's really interesting talks by Sadhguru. He's an Indian philosopher, and he basically explains, this is what he's alluding to, that you can only experience the world inside your body. You can't experience the world outside, because it's all just a bunch of perceptions, and everybody's perception is completely different. So there's actually no one true physical reality. I give you a simple example, which I always, when I tell clients, when I have one-to-one clients, I always tell them, imagine I invite you to lunch and I serve cabbage. I love cabbage. You hate cabbage. Same physical reality, completely different reality. You are having a horrible time. You are dreading lunch. It's awkward for you. You don't know how you're going to try, spit out the cabbage on the side of the table or whatever you're going to do. It's just an uncomfortable, unpleasant reality. And for me, it's a beautiful, wonderful reality. And I can't wait to, eat. So our physical reality is experienced within us. We're going all over the place in this introduction, but you're starting to see the kind of ideas that we're talking about when we're thinking about spirituality and the world and the physical world, political, you can call it political, world of interaction, the world of change. So let's go back to this concept of change, which I started, which was like half of me. One half is spiritual, one half is change, right? The Buddhists, they have a concept which is anicca, okay? And anicca just means change, change, change. So oftentimes we think, okay, we need change in the world. We need a new president. We need this and we need that. But when we are going now from the spiritual realm and understanding the idea of change, what we're understanding is change is happening every moment. Your body is basically creating new cells and shedding them off. So like in 7 days or whatever the time period is, you no longer have the same physical body, right? In the same way, your breath is going in and going out. You're in a constant state of change. Your biology is constantly changing. The atoms are constantly changing in your field of reality, in your physical space. Your thoughts are constant change of energy. So just the fact that you exist means that you're making change. This is quite a radical way to understand change in the world, because it means we don't have to, may not have to, just our very existence has impact that reverberates throughout the entire cosmos, because everything is energy and everything is connected, right? That idea of connection is very, very important. So this class is really about understanding the spiritual dimension, what it is, how it works? What does the ancient teachings tell us about it? What does modern scientific discovery tell us about it? When we understand the spiritual realm more, it's no longer something we just have to believe in, it's something we know. It's also about tools to help us experience this. And most of the religious traditions, they have different tools. But there are also non-religious tools, or tools that are outside of a religious tradition that can also help us to access it. And we all can access it, and we all need to access it in a different way. We can't all have the same connection in the same way. If you talk to any religious person, the way they practice is going to be different from somebody else, because it's a practice that is not using the physical and not using the intellectual. And it's an inner practice, it's an experiential practice. Okay, so it's also about the tools that can help us to access. And it's also about, okay, so what can we do with this? What can we really do with this? Where are the limits? Some people have the idea that spirituality is the realm of the personal and it's between you and God and it has no other place anywhere else. That's, I guess, what you could say is the modern secular view. Like, you practice your whatever you believe at home. Don't bring it into the world. But what we can see from this is that, and I think we need to just, we need to be very clear here, that the physical world is basically an intensification and focus of the spiritual energy. Okay, you cannot, there's no this without this. It's just not possible. Something does not come from nothing. Something comes from something. So we're gonna also start to understand how basically the spiritual realm, this spiritual information, energy, thought, awareness, all of those things, they are projected into the physical world. And basically your physical reality is simply a projection of your spiritual state, of your energy. So that means that we cannot leave this outside of what we're doing in the world, in our relationships, in our communication to people, in the way we learn, in how we engage with our physical reality, and how, if we want to intentionally make change at whatever level, whether it's in our family, whether it's in our community, whether it's in a country or the world, we have to understand this, because all of that is simply a reflection of that, is simply a projection of that. So we will, in one class, also look a little bit at the history of where science and spirituality disconnected, and why at some point science was really said, you don't touch this. It happened in early, I don't even know the dates, I'm very bad at specifics, but I will look it up, and in that class we'll talk about a little bit about what happened there. But there was a time where it disconnected, and it was a decision that was made. It was a choice that was taken. That's in our modern history. I mean, there's also ancient history, which we know nothing about, but when we know something about, we also know that in all the ancient societies, spirituality was the center point of life. We know about the pyramids, the electromagnetic fields around them, the design of them that perfectly mirrored the distances between the sun and the moon and the earth, and all of these we have like something called sacred mathematics. There's all kinds of different knowledge systems about ancient societies where spirituality was at the heart of life. So for me, these two go together. So this class is really about understanding the framework and not blindly just saying, okay, I believe or I don't believe, or you must believe or you don't believe. That's silly if you believe. No, that's not the there's no arguments here. You're going to understand whatever you are ready to understand, and however it makes sense for you. You know, and you're going to go off and do whatever research you want to on your phone when you're on the train or on the bus, you know, and look up whatever videos we can share, some references and stuff, and it's going to be your journey to start understanding everything. What is the divine? How does it work? How are we built to work? What's our technology? We, you know, Sadhguru, for example, has this course called Inner Engineering. What does he mean by inner engineering? He's saying the body and the mind is a technological tool that we can use. And there's a lot of knowledge and science, even ancient science, around how to do that. Okay? And why are we going to do that? Why should you go on this journey? Because if you go on this journey, it's going to change your life. It's going to expand your energy, because you're going to start to experience a different way more. Okay? It's going to help you to have tools for yourself in your life, just in terms of what they call like mindfulness. I mean, just helping you to be in good states, because all of these tools help you to get to a certain beautiful state. It's going to help your relationships, because how we relate to others is just a function of how we're feeling inside. And it's going to help your work. It's going to help you find more meaning in it, and use very powerful principles and apply it into that. So it's really a journey of, you know, when I was advertising, so-called advertising this course, people are like, you can't be so big in your terms. I'm like, I can't explain it any other way. They're like, what's your call to action? I'm like, it's coming on a journey to yourself and the cosmos. And they're like, Neha, what are you saying? But really it is. It really is. Okay, because the cosmos is within you. We're going to see all of this. We're going to understand it. It's going to make sense. And you are within it. There's no difference, because everything is energy. So having said that, and with just 10 minutes left for today.
Sorry to interrupt you, Neha. So I wanted to like use the remaining time to answer some questions people have been. Yeah, they have like specific questions. Okay. Maybe they want to be discussed.
Are we?
Yeah.
Sure. Are we okay if we go 10 minutes more? I just have a small exercise I would like to do with everybody. It won't take more than a minute. Is that okay? Can we go on a little bit longer, after maybe 5-10 minutes after the time?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna run time here. Time's not gonna run us. Okay. Right. We're the boss. So
we're not bound by the fourth dimension.
Bound by 4 dimensions. We're gonna go to 11 dimensions here. So my question is, and I would just love if we could all just share it very briefly. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it's also to get you to start to think. Like, why are you here today? And why did you come? What do you want out of this? I think it's a really beautiful starting point for everybody to start to also see each other. I don't know if you want to go alphabetically, or Eugene, you just want to call on people, or people want to volunteer.
Okay, I'll start, and then I'll call them as they appear on my screen.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm here to facilitate today's meeting, and also I'm like really into like spiritual, wisdom. I like wisdom like very much, like how people like find joy in like dancing, like me find like experiencing and learning about stuff like really like makes me happy to discover something maybe, or see something from a different perspective that I hadn't before. Yeah, it really excites me, and it's also like makes me like live like to my fullest potential, like having this information and insights to have the bigger picture. So that's from me. And then next we'll go to Maya.
I don't think I can articulate too well the reasons I'm here, but I think they're probably twofold. The first being I'm I'm always looking to learn more. So firstly, I'm here to learn. And secondly, I think, as I said earlier, I think I've been doing a lot of introspection, having the time on my hands to do that over the past year. And I'm possibly here to access a little bit more of me that I'm unable to for various reasons. So I think this is a route that I could possibly take in order to do that. So I hope that makes sense.
Perfect.
Yes. Mr. Hilal, I hope I've pronounced it right.
Spot on.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm here for two reasons. One is because I always enjoy talking to and listening to Neha. Always feel I learn something. And two, because I have become, in the last like 5 years or so, I've become really interested in what I think of as practical wisdom, like how to live your life well in just a very practical way, like what routines, habits you need to put in place. And I found that really useful, but it feels like there's something missing. Like there needs to be a sense of the divine for that to work, for it to work optimally. And so I'm interested in exploring that. And that's why I'm here.
Nice. Mr. Jonas.
Okay. I don't know how many reasons, but anyway, the first, I think Neha convinced me to join this program, and I think she has great insight. I have to say, you know, I think I've been doing a bit of publicity to convince some people, you know, and they started people ask me, what is this? Is this some Buddha thing you are going to chant and all that? Anyway, but I think I keep telling my colleagues, you know, just come and meet this woman. I think Neha is great. That is one. The second, I think for me also is I'm here just to learn. You know, I'm a very curious person, and I'm curious to know about, you know, these new concepts that you know, connection between politics, you know, spirituality, you know, life. So I think I'm also here to explore and learn new things. And more importantly, you know, I work in a very, anyway, we all live and work in a very complex and dynamic environment. How do we navigate around that? I normally say that it's not only a human adventure. There is something more than just human adventure. So how do we, you know, learn something that's, and then also I like the use of the ancient wisdom. Okay, and how is that can help us to move, you know, navigate around our world today.
Miss Aruna. Unmute. Okay, let me unmute you.
Yeah, hi. So
Hi.
I work in the development sector, and I've been very passionate, so I'm here to get to understand if I can get some answers or understanding of society, a deeper understanding of society, how, you know, what makes some people the Ambanis or the Bill Gates of society, and some who are, you know, and the different sections of society. So to get a deeper understanding of human interactions, how we interact with each other, and you know, what forms the values in society and ethics. Yeah, and is there a connection to spirituality and politics in that sense? Thank you.
Okay. Neha's mom. Unmute. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So Neha and I had a conversation a few days ago, and as you can imagine, between parents and children, there are distances, just like the atoms I talked about, and those distances are just normal, but there are distances of experience and attitude. And one of the things that I saw in that conversation, following the conversation, is that I have an abundance of caution, verging on an abundance of fear, And of course, we are all shaped by our lives and what happens to us, etc. Whereas Neha has an abundance of courage, as does the young man Tariq there. And sometimes that seems foolhardy to me. But I'd like to understand Neha's perspective, and I'd also like to explore ways of getting rid of those, or having less fear.
Okay.
That's it, really, simple as that.
Nice. So, Jasmeet.
I think for me, through the years, we've all been taught like how we have to connect spiritually. I think it's a cultural thing in most of us. But for me, I've always had a very unique outlook to spirituality. So for me, this class and this journey is more of trying to understand or to have a more open view on how to approach spirituality from a different angle. I have a different perception. I'm surrounded by people who have a different perception. But for me, it's more of a journey of how I would want to strengthen the spirituality I have with what I believe is correct or wrong, or is the way of connecting with someone. So for that, for me, it's more of an enlightenment that I'm really looking forward to. It's a different vision or view. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay, nice. Marisa, iPhone Marisa.
So I would say I'm here just to grow and to learn and develop, and I love to listen to Nea's wisdom and insights, and to gain more understanding, and to reconnect, to grow spiritually. Sometimes we might feel like we reach a certain plateau. So to just reconnect and develop, I would say.
Nice. Sana.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, spirituality, I'm dabbling into it. I've always thought it was something on a religious or spiritual, so trying to figure out, it has eluded me for now. Some people say we're not religious but spiritual, and I really get confused because in my head it was one and the same thing. I tried meditation a couple years ago, but it just I just couldn't grasp it. So I guess getting on this session today, I'm just trying to learn other people's perspective of how it is for them, and then try to understand it and see if I can get myself into the spiritual world and enlighten myself. So yeah.
Okay. Last but not least, Farah.
Hi guys. So I started going on this journey in December after I went through a major traumatic event, and Neha has really been there, and we go on long walks, and I'm just learning how to be open, trying to become more spiritual, like learn that the ego comes in the way of everything, like a lot of things, and a lot of fear comes from the ego. So I'm loving learning from Neha about all these things and us bouncing ideas off each other. So it's been a really awakening experience for me.
Yeah. Okay, Neha, back to you. Also, you should also share what you are.
Why am I here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a book. I'm here because this is all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. I'm here teaching because when I teach, I fly. And I'm here because, yeah, I love doing this. It gives me so much, gives me so much meaning and connection. And I think it's my gift. I think my gift is to be able to take complicated ideas and make them a bit simple and then relevant also to like life, not just leave them up in the sky. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm also here to learn because I know every time I teach, I learn from people. Every time I hear from somebody, I learn something. And I also am moved every time to hear from people. Like something always, when people share their truth, it always moves me. So it's just a joy and a privilege. That's why I'm here.
So we are open now for questions, and I'll start. I'll read the first question, and then we can discuss. So the first question is, why is our perception of the world different when, according to the philosophy, we all have the same energy? We have the same energy in the world. So why is our perception different? Yeah.
Our perception is different because we are each unique creations of the divine, each unique manifestations of the divine. That's actually going to be discussed in one class, that how incredibly creative the creator is. That every single leaf on every single tree in the history of all time on this planet has been unique, in the same way every human is. And we each have something called a mind. And then there's a conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and we're also going to look at that. And we are filtering our reality, we're filtering the external so-called reality through that mind. And that mind is a completely unique mind with a completely unique set of beliefs, a completely unique set of experiences. I mean, even just the language in which you function changes how you perceive reality. So it's really a lot to do with our mind, but also our senses. Some people are colorblind, so they see things differently. So because we are unique beings, and we therefore have a unique shell or lenses in which we can experience the world, we're going to experience the world uniquely. And it's also the beauty of the creation, is that diversity. And that's why the Indian tradition, and I think other traditions also say, we need all the different religions, we need all the different traditions, we need all the different paths, we need all the different wisdoms, because we all going to resonate with different things. It's like how one book can change your life, and I just can never get past page 10,
Okay. Okay. So any other question? Okay, can I add something to that, if it's okay?
Mm-hmm.
I also think that our relationship, like in terms of spirituality, like the level you are in terms of consciousness, on how awoke you are, also affects your mentality and perception, and also your experiences of life. Obviously, like your background, your environment, it also shapes people based on their environment. But like when you get like such levels of enlightenment, you can overcome and you realize that when you observe like people like who reach certain levels of enlightenment, they have like similar behaviors in terms of detachment from earthly desires. So maybe there's levels to aspire to, but like enjoy like where you are, because every experience has a reason like why you are where you are. So that's my take on the issue. But yeah, any other question? Mr. Hilal, you had raised your hand earlier. Sorry. Can you hear me? You had raised your hand earlier.
I think he's talking to you, Tariq, and he's muted. Maybe he can't. I think he seems to be okay though. He would have put his hand up. No, maybe it was an accident.
Okay, it's okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions or just something they'd like to share?
I have, I mean, I don't know if it's an observation or a question. So
Yeah.
earlier you were talking about how 99.99 to infinity% of matter or energy is space. Is there some kind of Vedic significance to space, or why are we focusing on the 0.1% of what exists? Does that make sense? What's the relevance of the other 99.9%
What is
of
the
everything?
meaning of the space?
Yeah, what is
So-
the space?
So in the Indian tradition and some of the other ancient traditions, you have 5 elements. Modern society has talked about 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water. But in the 5th element is ether. And ether it's not actually empty. It's what we could call spiritual presence. It's basically like the dimension through which the spiritual acts and operates, the ether. A guy called Greg Braden, who has a book called, he does a lot of work around the divine matrix, and it's what the movie The Matrix is about, is talking about this other dimension. And this dimension is basically the dimension of infinity. It's a very important concept. If you go on my website, I've got infinity everywhere. So we operate in time and space, and we're going to look at, I think in the 3rd class or 4th class, we're going to look at the difference between how we operate, the dimension of time and space, and then the dimension of infinity in which the divine operates, which is beyond time and space, which is infinity. So it is very important, the ether. It's that 5th element. They said, some people translated it as space, but it's not really space. Space is not empty in that sense. It's totally filled. And we're, at the quantum level, a lot of quantum experiments shows that there's so much going on in space. It's not nothing going on in space. The quantum level. Does that help you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any other question before we start winding up on our first class?
Okay, well, usually with these classes, what happens is people always tend to think of things later and have questions or have thoughts. But also there's a lot of references that you can share and send. So if you guys are okay, what I could do just to make things easier, I could potentially, I know you all have 100,000 of these, but I could potentially set up a little WhatsApp group to share, and you can also share your questions if you like. We do not have to do this at all. We can continue just as we are without adding another group with which we have to create a little icon. Does anybody have any views about that? Would you like to do something together so that you can put in questions or thoughts or ideas and also share like videos, links to articles and information? Or not?
Yes.
Is yes? It's a yes? Okay, thumbs up if it's a yes. Oh, nobody can do thumbs up. You're like, okay, you don't have to be in it if you don't want to. You can also be like, I'm out of this, no problem. Okay, so what I'll do is I will set up a group. If at any point you want to leave, no problem. Or if you don't want to be in it, no problem, right? It'll also just be a way I can share links to like Zoom things, and I don't have to like email everybody and then WhatsApp everybody. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is I did send out some emails to everybody with information about the course, but unfortunately it went to a lot of people's spam. So I'm going to do some, but basically, technically we're still getting there. So bear with us, okay? And thirdly, I think just thank you all so much for joining today. It's been so great to have you. I think when we started to share a little bit, we started to see the beautiful energy that our different vibrations are creating together. So I'm really happy to have you all here with us. And we're going to have recordings of this every week. So in case you can't attend one week, you can always just let me know. We'll send you a recording so you can see the class. But otherwise, I really do hope you'll continue on the journey, and I hope to see you next week. Some of you I might see sooner than that. Otherwise, have a lovely evening. Enjoy yourselves. Rest and relax.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Nair. Thank you so much.
I was also watching.
Thank you.
And I will also say
Bye.
thank